Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The Lord then appeared as the Kapila incarnation, being the son of the prajāpati brāhmaṇa Kardama and his wife, Devahūti. Along with 9 other women, sisters, he spoke to his mother about self-realization, by which, in that very lifetime, she became fully cleansed of the mud of the material modes and thereby achieved liberation, the path of Kapila. Please repeat. The Lord then appeared as the Kapila incarnation.
The Lord then appeared as the Kapila
incarnation,
being the son of the prajāpati brāhmaṇa,
being the son of the brāhmaṇa,
Kardama and his wife, Devahūti. Along with 9 other women, sisters. He spoke to his mother about self-realization, by which, in that very lifetime, she became fully cleansed of the mud.
He became fully cleansed of the mud,
the material modes,
and
thereby achieved liberation, the path of Kapila.
So, Gauda, I'll be scrolling up the purport as you're reading. Otherwise, everybody is muted except for you.
Okay, thank you. Wonderful purport by Srila Prabhupada. The instructions of Lord Kapila to his mother Devahūti are fully described in the 3rd canto, chapters 25 to 32 of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And anyone who follows the instructions can achieve the same liberation obtained by Devahūti. The Lord spoke Bhagavad Gita, and thereby Arjuna achieved self-realization. And even today, anyone who follows the path of Arjuna can also attain the same benefit as Sri Arjuna. The scriptures are meant for this purpose. Foolish, unintelligent persons make their own interpretations by imagination and thus mislead their followers, causing them to remain in the dungeon of material existence. However, simply by following the instructions imparted by Lord Krishna or Lord Kapila, one can obtain the highest benefit, even today. The word Atmagatim is significant in the sense of perfect knowledge of the Supreme. One should not be satisfied simply by knowing the qualitative equality of the Lord and the living being. One should know the Lord as much as can be known by our limited knowledge. It is impossible for the Lord to be known perfectly as he is, even by such liberated persons as Shiva or Brahma. So what to speak of other demigods or men in this world? Still, by following the principles of the great devotees and the instructions available in the scriptures, one can know to a considerable extent the features of the Lord. His Lordship Kapila, the incarnation of the Lord, instructed his mother fully about the personal form of the Lord, and thereby she realized the personal form of the Lord and was able to achieve a place in the Vaikuntha Loka, where Lord Kapila predominates. Every incarnation of the Lord has his own abode in the spiritual sky. Therefore, Lord Kapila also has a separate Vaikuntha planet. The spiritual sky is not void. There are innumerable Vaikuntha planets, and in each of them, the Lord, by his innumerable expansions, predominates. And the pure devotees who are there also live in the same style as the Lord and his eternal associates. When the Lord descends personally or by his personal plenary expansions, such incarnations are called Amsa, Kala, Guna, Yuga, and Manvantara incarnations. And when the Lord's associates descend, by the order of the Lord, such incarnations are called Shaktavesha incarnations. But in all cases, all the incarnations are supported by the invulnerable statements of the authorized scriptures, and not by any imagination of some self-interested propagandist. Such incarnations of the Lord in either of the above categories always declare the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be the ultimate truth. The impersonal conception of the Supreme Truth is just a process of negation of the form of the Lord from the mundane conception of the Supreme Truth. The living entities, by their very constitution, are spiritually as good as the Lord, and the only difference between them is that the Lord is always supreme and pure, without contamination by the modes of material nature. Whereas the living entities are apt to be contaminated by association with the material modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. This contamination by the material modes can be washed off completely by knowledge, renunciation, and devotional service. Devotional service to the Lord is the ultimate issue, and therefore those who are directly engaged in the devotional service of the Lord not only acquire the necessary knowledge in spiritual science, but also attain detachment from material connection and are thus promoted to the kingdom of God by complete liberation, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 14:26. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samati jaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Even in the non-liberated stage, a living entity can be directly engaged in the transcendental loving service of the personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, or his plenary expansions like Ram and Shringa. Thus, with the appropriate improvement of such transcendental devotional service, the devotee makes definite progress towards Brahmagatim or Atmagatim, and ultimately attains Kapilashagatim, or the abode of the Lord, without difficulty. The antiseptic potency of devotional service to the Lord is so great that it can neutralize the material infection even in the present life of a devotee. A devotee does not need to wait for his next birth for complete liberation. Om Jnana Timanandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshushrumilitanena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Upakadamayam Dadanti Swavedantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Rama Rama Hare Hare. So the verse again. Yagnecha Kardama Grihe Dvija Devahūtyam Stribi Samam Navavir Atmagatim Swamatre Ucheya Yatmastamalam Guna Sangapankam Asmid Vidhuya Kapilashagatim Prapede. The Lord then appeared as the Kapila incarnation, being the son of the prajāpati brāhmaṇa Kardama and his wife, Devahūti, along with 9 other women, sisters. He spoke to his mother about self-realization, by which, in that very lifetime, she became fully cleansed of the mud of the material modes, and thereby achieved liberation, the path of Kapila. Jai. So, Would you like me to take over the screen again?
Oops. Sorry.
Sorry.
Okay. I have to find you.
Alrighty.
Intermission, Bruce. What are you listed as? How come I don't see you?
Probably
must be Gaudacandra.
I would hope so.
Oh, here, Gauda. There it is, Gauda.
Okay, so switching, I see it here. Okay, can you see me?
Not yet. Now we can see.
Okay, great. So today's class, as we mentioned already, is from the Srimad Bhagavatam. That's the second canto, chapter 7, text number 3. And today's topic will be presented on knowledge. Now, this is not just ordinary knowledge. This is the kind of knowledge that you receive from great sages, as we see here, Maitreya and Vidura. In fact, this whole pastime is being narrated because of the question by Vidura to Maitreya. He was approaching in very humble mood. O holy brāhmaṇa, O sinless one, you have spoken of his daughter, known by the name of Devahūti, and his wife, the sage Kardama, the Lord of created beings. So he's asking him, how many offsprings did the great yogi beget through this princess who's endowed with the eightfold perfections of the yogic principles? So he's praying to him, please tell me this, I'm eager to hear. So everything from time immemorial is centered around distributing knowledge. And this is what's been happening. So, as mentioned in the purport, or actually in the verse, it says here, 273 that we read today, the mud of the material modes. So there's a nice prayer that's offered by Rupa Goswami in the Sri Prajāpati. And it goes like this. I offer my respectful obeisances to the devotees of the Lord simply by hearing the two syllables, Krishna. Their bodily hairs stand up in ecstasy, and they become moved to dance in ecstatic bliss. With their sandals, they expertly extricate the fallen souls deeply sunk in the fetid mud of the ocean of repeated birth and death. So this is what everyone wants, is to get free from filth, mud. So this is the process that's described very nicely by Rupa Goswami. So here we see this mud of the material energy is being transformed into these bricks and buildings and cement and so many different things that we see. This material energy is being produced in such a way. And they're exploiting this material world. And those who are exploiting this material world are called pramata. Deluded, they're bewildered, or maddened by the desire to enjoy this material world. But in order to become free from this, we have to become alert, sober. And what happens in this madness is that we deny God, we deny his laws. But the Lord is sober, and he's aware of everything that we're doing, and he can reward or punish according to our activities. So we can see we've actually created practically our own dungeon of material existence. We're being bound. But everybody wants freedom. And what is this freedom? Is it just being free from ourselves, being free from this bondage of the material energy? There's a nice quote by Nelson Mandela, who was in prison for many years. And as he walked out the door towards the gate that would lead to his freedom, he said to himself, and he knew to himself, that if I didn't leave my bitterness and hatred behind, that I would still be in prison. So what is this freedom? Prabhupada says every living being is anxious for full freedom. We're anxious for full freedom because that's our transcendental nature. And as we mentioned, this freedom is obtained only through the transcendental service of the Lord, and we can be free from this bound nature of the laws of the mature world only by the mercy of the great saints and the sadhus. We can see in the mature world, actually we can't move freely from one place to another, even on earth, or to speak of going to one planet to another. But only by surrendering unto the transparent medium of the spiritual master, we can obtain this full freedom of life. So we have many leaders, and how are they guiding us? It seems like today, all they want us to do is work, buy, consume, and then die. That's what's offered by our leaders. So this is what they teach, and they understand how through this economic development, people adapt to what they get. They adapt to it. They experience something new, and then after a while it becomes ordinary. But yet again, they fall victim to the same thing every time. Something else new. Okay, then I get tired of it. I want to get this new product. I want to get these new clothes, this and that. So every time we fall victim to these so many things. It's called adaptation. And then they have this effective forecasting that we imagine and we overestimate the actual experience of what we think we're going to get from these things. So what happens is that you're disappointed every time. And they teach us, we're on this hedonic treadmill, they call it. We get on this treadmill and we're so absorbed in it that we can't distinguish anymore between what we really need and what we want. There's no distinction. We just want this, whether we need it or not. So it's absolutely necessary that we have to consider how to go another route. Prabhu says, while we're in the prison, we should try to survive. It's natural. Maybe we want to get a better cell. It's natural. But still, we can't forget what full freedom actually is. And that's what Prabhupada wanted us. He said to the governments to build your nation on a spiritual foundation. Because we're in this dungeon of material existence, as in the purport it's described very graphically, this dungeon of the material existence, very graphic. And here's an interesting graphic to show what it's like in a dungeon. We see we're bound, we're suffering, we can't move, we're in complete ignorance. And this is what material life, it's actually cherished. It's like a dark hole, filled with poisonous snakes. And in that life, there's no clear understanding of one's ultimate identity, of God, of the universe. How can you see that in a vision like this? Everything's vague, everything's dark. And in material life, there's a poisonous snake of time, and it's always threatening us and our loved ones. We will be killed by these fangs of the serpent. And that's what ultimately will happen. And this was a nice prayer that Uddhava was explaining to Krishna. He was having mercy on the poor souls. He's very humbly approaching. And he says that if someone receives your mercy, even without any qualifications, they can go back home, back to Godhead. So all of us, we're being pathetically crushed by this material world, this material machinery of illusion. And ultimately, the fruits of our material endeavor is death. But the living entity foolishly thinks material things will bring in pleasure. And this is the irony of material existence. Although material happiness is considered a Sanskrit term called chudra, or it's ridiculous, it's insignificant. But our desire to enjoy it is uru. It's tremendous. So this is what it is. We're disproportionately hankering to enjoy this dead matter. And that's certainly our illusory state of mind. It only gives us constant distress. And it keeps us bound up in this dark hole of material existence. So we're behooved, we're asked, we're given knowledge that we should put aside this false prestige based on this ephemeral body, these ephemeral qualifications, and just sincerely appeal to Krishna for his mercy. And if the Lord hears that sincere appeal, then even the most fallen soul can be saved simply by achieving that mercy of Krishna. Even one who's not a great devotee, a pure devotee, if he sincerely appeals to the Lord for his mercy, the Lord is surely going to give him his mercy. So this is the kindness of the Lord. So as you know, we're talking about going from the A cell or the D cell to the B cell, A cell. So here in the material world, we can see there's some nice places, some attractive things. And gradually, Prabhupada wanted us to develop a society that all these unnecessary rubbish things would be rejected. That was his idea. He said, let people, create these industrial, technical things. We're not interested, but we can take advantage. We don't have to bother ourselves about it. And there's a nice, I have a nice clip from Srila Prabhupada talking about this. This is actually a picture of the park in Denver, Colorado, where very beautiful park. And Prabhupada would take morning walks here, and many of those walks are recorded. And here Prabhupada talks about interesting such a beautiful park. Nobody's there to enjoy. They're all looking at buildings. They're all working hard, getting up early, driving to work in his factories and his buildings. And here we are, the devotees, just walking. So here's what Prabhupada says. Let's listen.
Nice park. Nobody is coming. We Krishna conscious people are taking advantage. They have worked so hard, they are sleeping. We are taking advantage. So they are escaping or we are escaping. And just see how foolish they are. They have worked so hard and they are not taking advantage. We are taking. So our policy is that you work hard and we go and take from you. This is not escaping, this is intelligence. That you work hard as well, you are foolish asses, and we take advantage. George Harrison, he is working hard, brilliant, and he works hard and he gives a house. Bhaktivedanta Manana. We are not going to construct. Is that escaping or it is intelligence? That you work hard and give it to me, you enjoy. This is intelligence. This is not escaping. And that is going on. The capitalists, they are engaging these rascals, asses, in the factory and enjoying that. That is intelligence. That is not escaping. You know the story of the stag and the jackal? The jackal fell in the well, water. He was not unable to come. So one stag came there. What is it? Oh, it is so nice, I'm dancing. He said, it is very nice. So he also fell down. And as soon as he fell down, he got on his head and got out. So that is intelligence. They let these rascals work hard and make a nice park for us, and we shall take advantage of it. This is intelligence. And it is called Ajagar Vritti. Ajagar Vritti, Ajagar means the big snake is called Ajagar. So these mouse, they make hole and want to live there. And the comfortable living, in the meantime, the Ajagar comes, he eats that mouse and leaves comfortable. Our is Ajagar Vritti. You work for the whole to live comfortably, but we take possession of the house and live comfortably. Los Angeles, the storekeeper, they ask government that you do not work, you live so comfortably, and working so hard, we cannot live so comfortably. And as soon as we ask, you also come and join. They will not. No, we shall work like. We are asking everyone, come here. But that will not come. That is their envious. Therefore they say escaping, that they are living at the cost of others, so comfortable. That is their envious. They see they have got so many cars, their face is bright, they are eating nicely, and they have no problem, so they are envious.
Okay, so that's a very nice clip by Srila Prabhupada. So we may think we're very intelligent, we may think we're brilliant, but it's no guarantee against being dead wrong. And this is an unfortunate soul. And everyone should know that an unfortunate living entity is overconfident in the power of his own intelligence. That's actually the symptom of an unfortunate soul. And such a person, he rejects the mercy of the Lord. And by the force of logic, false logic, he falls repeatedly into the pit of illusion. So here's a nice image and this wonderful story that Srila Prabhupada talks about the scholar and the boatman, and just referring again to this, what do you call it, the intellectual brilliance is no guarantee that one will be saved. So let's listen to what Srila Prabhupada says here.
An interesting story has been described by our Satsuru Maharaj in the Devahūti garden. The learned scholar and the boatman. The boatman in Bengal, there are many rivers, and the people generally transport by boat service. So, a learned scholar from Calcutta, say, was going home in the village on a boat, and he was very happy. So he was asking the boatman, "My dear boatman, do you know what are these stars, this astronomy, how they are working?" "No, sir, I do not." "Oh, your life is 25% lost. You do not know." Then after some time, you know the geology, how these earth, water, they are working. He said, "No, sir, I am poor man, what can I know?" "No, you are 50% of your life." Then, all of a sudden, there was a cloud, black cloud on the sky, and there was a storm. Then at that time, the boatman asked, said, "Do you know how to swim?" "No, I do not know." "Then 100% you are lost." "You are going to be drowned." He jumped and he drowned. So this is the point. You are trying to understand the whole analytical study of the material world. That is very good. But if you do not know how to remember Narayan at the time of death, then you are going to be cast and down. That's all.
So here's a very encouraging quote from the Bhagavad Gita 4:36. "Even if you're considered to be the most sinful of all sinners, when you're situated on the boat of transcendental knowledge, you will be able to cross over the ocean of miseries." So we are very fortunate today that we have this boat of transcendental knowledge called ISKCON. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his empowered representative, Srila Prabhupada, they created a movement to save people from this dungeon of material life. And we should all very seriously take advantage of this. The Supreme Personality is described as Manu Mahanubhava, or the greatest, the most powerful, the most merciful personality of Godhead. And his influence extends everywhere. So, and this mercy is manifest in the form of his nectarian instructions, such as the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, all these transcendental literatures that we have, this transcendental knowledge. So we must make an endeavor to understand this knowledge. We must make an endeavor to distribute this knowledge. We must try. Actually, trying is the perfection. If we don't try, then we won't make it. Just simply have to try to do these things. And we can share this knowledge quickly. Srila Prabhupada has created the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust so that we can distribute his books. And that's the purpose of all these books, is to just convince people of this Yuga Dharma of the age, which is to take up this chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, take up devotional service, this chanting, dancing, and feasting. And unless we give this knowledge, it's described that we're actually committing violence. So everything is centered around distributing knowledge. There's a really nice Sankirtan devotee, maybe some of you know him, Parameshwar Prabhu. He gave a class here in LA when he came through. And he was talking about how he had a dream of Srila Prabhupada one time. He was traveling between different events, like they travel, miles and miles, and go from one event to the other, distributing Srila Prabhupada's books, trying to do that. So he took a nap, and then immediately, he was pretty tired. He just took a nap before the next event, and immediately he started to dream. And he dreamt that he was in the temple next to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada was on the Vyasa-san. So he was there chanting, and he thought, oh, some nice, Srila Prabhupada. Maybe I could render him some service. So he wanted to do something for Prabhupada there. And so he started to massage Prabhupada's shoulder. Immediately as he touched Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada came to life. And he was like, wow, this Prabhupada's here. It's like, and Prabhupada's like, yes, Prabhupada is. And then he thought, oh, maybe I should ask Prabhupada. Oh, he asked Prabhupada, how are you, Prabhupada? He said, yeah, fine, And then he thought, maybe it's a good time to ask Prabhupada a question. So he asked Prabhupada, Prabhupada, how can I serve you? What can I do for you? And Prabhupada said, and then immediately the dream, he went into the airport. He appeared in the airport, and Prabhupada was there, and he said, please stop someone so that I can preach to them. Srila Prabhupada was crying to him, saying, please stop someone so I can preach to them. So then he stopped somebody, he showed him the book, and then he opened the book. The person was interested in looking at the book. And then he said, oh yeah, this book is written by our spiritual master. He's right here. So when he handed in the book, as soon as he touched the book, and then looked, and Prabhupada was gone. So he realized that actually Srila Prabhupada is in these books, and Prabhupada wants us to help him preach. Actually, it's Srila Prabhupada who's preaching. So we can distribute these books in this way. And it's mentioned, if you're considered to be the most sinful of all sinners, when you're situated on this boat of transcendental knowledge, you can cross it. So this is what's important. Arjuna was fearing that I'm going to get sinful reactions, but Krishna told him that the cure is transcendental knowledge. It's not fleeing from the battlefield, but have this knowledge and distribute it. So we have to accept it. Just as this blazing fire turns wood to ashes, so this fire of knowledge, it burns the reactions of all our material activities. And also it's described in the Bhagavad Gita that there's nothing more sublime. There's nothing more pure as this transcendental knowledge. It's the mature fruit of all mysticism. So in the course of time, people get this knowledge and enjoy it. It's very important. So there's a saying that, I guess someone gives George Bernard Shaw credit for it, I'm not sure, but those who can do, those who can do, those who can't teach. So this is a very interesting quote, that This is one who actually knows should be teaching, is doing and teaching. This is according to the Vedic system. A Brahmana's business is that he becomes learned himself, he becomes an erudite scholar, and then he actually teaches it to others. That's his business. Patan, yajan, dana, pratigraha. That he becomes himself a scholar, then he helps others become a scholar. He worships the deity, teaches others how to worship the deity, he accepts charity from others, then he gives contribution, he gives it to others. So whatever he gives during the day, he gives at night. He doesn't keep it, just that, they know how to do. So this is a brahmana, and these are the principles of a brahmana, that we get a degree, but it doesn't mean that you just get the degree and then that's it. But you have to follow principles. What's the point? One gets a degree, then he smokes, and he doesn't follow the principles. So that has to be there. Whether one's qualified, that'll be approved by his work. You see, to know is to do. So you're qualified. So it's not that you take a degree and then now you're smoking and then you go on. That's what they think academic means. But Vedic culture is not like that. You must act. And then that'll be all right. You see, so this is important. So this is what Krishna is telling Arjuna, that you have to have transcendental knowledge and detachment. So you must work and have this knowledge combined. So you know, and then you also work. So combined. And then that will free you from all sinful reactions. And this is the purpose of our scriptures. That's why we have so many scriptures, just so that we could remember. So association of devotees is so important. And we constantly have to repeat these scriptures, chant them, and they'll keep us intact. This is very important. Satanam, kirtanam, kirtanyam, tomam. So we have to do that constantly. So this is very interesting, talking about, education and knowledge. There was a graduate theological union. I think it's in Berkeley. And Srila Prabhupada, one of the devotees, when they found out about this, Prabhupada wanted the devotees to take advantage and actually become the ones that know, become the authorities in this field of transcendental Vedic science. So there's a nice conversation where Bahulasva was telling Prabhupada, this is a union of various theological schools. So now in Berkeley we have this very nice building, and we can become a member of this graduate theological union. I've been working with Dr. Judah for about 1 year, and we've talked about this before. And he said that he will sponsor us. And Prabhupada says, so I shall take it? Bahulasva says, yes. He said that he will sponsor us in this union, and then our devotees can just study your books. Maybe they must take an English course, and that will be all we couldn't offer. Then everything else, then they can study from our books. So Prabhupada says, somewhere or other, if they read my books, they will be benefited. There is no doubt about it. And Bahulasva says, yes. Then they can get a degree recognized by the state of California, so they can teach in universities all over the whole country. And here Prabhupada says, that I want. Do it. We want to give degrees, at least MA, BA, and PhD, according to the advancement of knowledge, and that will be very much benefited to your country. Then America will be saved from disaster, and it will be the leader. The country will be the leader of the whole world. Take this advantage. So Prabhupada wanted this. It's very important that we, the devotees actually started this theological union. They became authorities, and they're giving classes there and doing these many things. I know Brahmatirtha Prabhu is, helping with that, and Hridayananda Maharaj was helping with that. So this is happening. So this is the power. We're from the spiritual master, like Vidura and Maitreya. It takes away our ignorance. Om Jnana Timirandasya. So every one of us is born in this ignorance, and we require education, training for seeing things how they are. So this is a technology. It's a department of medical science, there's a department of teaching, engineering, there's a department of education. There's so many departments of knowledge, but unfortunately, where is the department for distributing knowledge of the science of the soul, Srila Prabhupada says? That's the mainstay. That's the background of everything, is the soul. So this is what Prabhupada wanted us to learn. So it's not that you just get your PhD and then you're finished. That's not what PhD means. But that means that they must come and they must actually follow. It's not that you give it up. You get a degree, okay, that's it, and then they just don't follow any principles, they don't have any way they act properly. Prabhupada says otherwise, just be like India. There's a caste brahmanas, they have no ideal, and therefore it's not working there. So it's just like Prabhupada used a nice proverb in Bengali, how the household work is done, but the household lady, she takes care of herself and dresses very nicely. So she's busy with all kinds of work. So similarly, she's dressing nicely. So similarly, we can be busy with all kinds of technology, living in the mature world. That's not forbidden. But at the same time, we have to understand the technology of the science of the soul. See, it's not bogus. It's actually factual. It's a science. So this is Krishna consciousness. It's also not a bogus propaganda. So Krishna consciousness means mitigating all the problems of life. And so the process is very easy. It's, what is it? Recommended by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Harinama, Harinama, Harinama Kevalam, Kalo Nasteva, 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 Gatir Anyata. So this is very nicely described there. So here you can see in Mayapur, this is the light. Srila Prabhupada, this was his most dear and ambitious project, was his temple of Vedic planetarium. And Prabhupada, in a lecture, he personally requested his disciples to endeavor to make this temple happen. And while speaking, his voice choked up. It's not just another preaching center. It's actually the home of the deities, of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of the deities. So we have a chance to participate in this beautiful temple by distributing knowledge. I had it linked to a video, which is very nice. It talks about the Vedic planetarium. But I'm going to skip that, I think, now for the sake of time. But it's very nice. It talks about how this is the light of the world and how we cannot hold this light back. We actually have to distribute this light to the world. And this is where it'll be emanating from. This will be a resource of knowledge. We're going to have the temple. There will be a multimedia center where they will teach people through the modern science of multimedia, all how the universe is created, the science of nature, the Sankhya, this system of philosophy, that was given by Kapila Dev, who in this particular thing, we're just going to go back here. I'm going to skip this for now. The link goes here, but I'm just going to stop it. But it's a very nice video. If anybody gets a time, it's called Rise Mooning in Mayapur. So I'll just stop that for now and go back to the presentation. And let's go to the next one. Let's see if we can get out of here, though. It's not going to let me out. Let's go back. Okay, let's see if it'll take me next to the line. If I can go. Just go back. There we go. So, here's the story. The background of the story. We have Lord Kapila Dev appeared in this particular age. And we see from this great saint, Kardama Muni, who was petitioned by Lord Brahma and Krishna, I believe, to, populate the world. So he wanted him to beget children. So the Kardama Muni, the great mystic, he practiced penance on the bank of the river Saraswati for a period of 10,000 years. And during that period of penance, he worshipped the Lord with devotional service and trance. It's not that he got a job. He didn't work probably a day in his life, but he actually performed devotional service. He was a great devotee of Krishna. And by, worshipping Krishna in that way, he eventually saw Krishna. Krishna appeared to him. And he appeared like effulgent, like the sun. You can see his description there, and how he's adored so nicely. So he actually realized the Supreme Personality in person, and he was satisfied, and he offered his obeisances with full love. And then this is what Kardama, the great sage, said. He said, "O Supreme Merciful Lord, my power of sight is now fulfilled, having obtained the greatest perfection of sight. Of you are the reservoir of all existence. Through many successive births and deep meditation, advanced yogis aspire to see your transcendental form. Your lotus feet are the true vessel to take one across the ocean of mundane nescience. Only persons deprived of their intelligence by the spell of the diluted energy will worship those feet with a view to attain the trivial and monetary pleasures of the senses, which even persons rotting in hell can attain. However, O my Lord, you are so kind that you bestow mercy upon even them." So he talks about how he has this desire to marry and fulfill his order. So he explains how persons who have given up stereotyped worldly affairs and the beastly followers of those affairs, and who have taken shelter of the umbrella of your lotus feet by drinking the intoxicating nectar of your qualities and activities and discussions with one another, can be freed from the primary necessities of the material body. So as we mentioned, the feet of the great souls they also bring this nectar to us, as Srila Prabhupada did. And then he says, your wheel, which has 3 naves, rotates around the axis of the imperishable Brahman, and has 13 spokes, 360 joints, 6 rims, and numberless leaves carved upon it. Though its revolution cuts short the lifespan of the entire creation, this wheel is tremendous velocity, cannot touch the lifespan of the devotees of the Lord. So we can see he was such a great devotee that actually Krishna appeared to him and said that, yes, there is a beautiful girl that I want you to marry. This is Devahūti. So Devahūti came and they got married, and she served him very nicely for years. She became very emaciated. She was very chaste. She didn't say, "Oh, you're not working. What can I do? You're just sitting there." But her father, Swami Vimana, knew that he actually wanted her to marry him because she knew that he's a devotee and he will help her achieve liberation from birth and death. So one time he came out of meditation and he saw his wife, and he was so filled with, compassion and love for his wife that he realized that, she's not happy because she wants a child, and that's the nature of a married woman. She wants a child. So he very mercifully, out of his mystic power, he created this wonderful lake in which she was able to go in. There was many girls in there, and they dressed her, bathed her, cleaned her very nicely, and decorated her, and she was revived to her natural beauty that she had had before she got married. So this is very nice, a mystic power of her husband. So also he realized that, we're too much in the mode of goodness here. We need some passion. So what does he do? He creates this aerial mansion, with parks and palatial buildings made out of precious stones and gems, not made out of mud, of the cement and bricks, but actually everything is made out of gems and wonderful, precious ingredients. And not only, was it able to be so beautiful like that, it actually could fly at his will to any planet. And within days, he could go to other planets and just enjoy a wonderful honeymoon. And this is where, what he did. He expanded this and realized that this is, the process. He was a great devotee of Krishna, and he utilized this material energy to serve Krishna, by having children. So Krishna says, of religious principles, sex life according to religious principles, I am. So he expanded himself into 9 times, and he impregnated his wife with 9 daughters. But then she was still unhappy, and she wanted a son because she knew her husband was going to leave, which he eventually did. He just took off, and he realized that my service is done, so I'll go back to worshiping Krishna. So he took leave of his son, and he asked his son to take care of his mother. And that's what she did. She actually did take care of his mother. And this is the process of Krishna consciousness. So she took shelter of her son And she said that, why am I suffering in this material world? Why am I, doing this? Why am I being disturbed by these modes of nature? But here, as mentioned in the purport to today's verse, this contamination by the material modes can be washed off completely by the knowledge, renunciation, and devotional service. So this is what actually took place here, that Kapila Devi enlightened his mother. And he said that this knowledge is the ultimate perfection of self-realization. And now I shall explain that knowledge unto you, by which the knots of attachment to the material world are cut. So just like in the verse it said that we, by this knowledge and detachment, and like that, it's reminded me of that verse, Vragya Vijja Nija Bhakti Yoga, Shiksartameka Purusha Purana, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Saradadari, Pibamburu Yastamaham Praklaje. That let me take shelter of the Supreme Personality of God as Shri Krishna, who has descended in the form of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to teach us real knowledge, his devotional service, and detachment from whatever does not foster Krishna consciousness. He has descended because he is an ocean of transcendental mercy. Let me surrender unto his lotus feet. But that comes along with the next verse, which says, let my consciousness, which is like a honeybee, take shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has just now appeared as Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to teach the system, the ancient system of devotional service to himself. This system had almost been lost due to the influence of time. So these verses are very important. And actually Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he declared these. And it said in another verse that this should be worn like a pearl necklace around the neck of the devotees. So she would always think about this verse. It's a very nice verse. So that's nice. So Prabhupada says a devotee doesn't need to wait for his next birth for complete liberation. That's in the purport at the end of the verse. And this is what she
That is the adoration and Professor Judah. That these dirt-addicted boys, how they have become Krishna conscious. That is his wonderful thing. He can say that we are escaping this horrible condition of life, meat eating, drinking, and intoxication. We are escaping this thing, not escaping happiness. You are escaping happiness.
So that's like what Prabhupada is saying now, the devotees are trying to escape, of working or whatever, but we're not escaping. All right. So here's some nice nectar verses. Dravida was here for the BBT meetings, and I was able to get some nectar from him. This is a nice verse that I quoted earlier, and this is some kind of poetry that's described. If we have time, there's only 3 verses, and we can hear him chant that. It's very nice.
Vriyanavadiya Puran. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam. Kalau nastyeva, nastyeva, nastyeva gapadam nitha. If you want to attain the supreme goal of life in this age when dissension and chaos abound, there is no other way, there is no other way. There is no other way that can ever be found but to chant Krishna's name, but to chant Krishna's name, but to chant Krishna's name with a stout-hearted vow, and to pray, O Lord Krishna, O friend of the poor, that my head ever unto your lotus feet bow.
So here's some nice verses that take off from this actual verse.
The Kevalashtakam. The holy name of Sri Hari is surely all that be. By Anonymous. Maduram Madurevyopi, Mangalevyopi Mangalam, Pavanam Pavanevyopi, Hare Namaya Kevalam. Of sweet things, it's the sweetest you will taste at any time. Of things that bring good fortune, it's the perfect paradigm. Of things that purify, it purifies most powerfully. The holy name of Sri Hari is surely all that be.
So there's several verses, but this is just the last verse I'm going to show here, which is nice.
Abrahmastam vapayantam savam mayamayam jagat satyam satyam punak satyam Hare Namaya Kevalam. From Brahma's realm atop the sky down to the lowly grass, illusion reigns in Maya Devi's treacherous morass. the truth, the only truth, the name of Shri Hari, the holy name of Shri Hari is truly all that be.
So this is what we have to look forward to. Transcendental atmosphere of the spiritual world, where Krishna is, and there we can enjoy with Krishna, with beautiful sounds, not the sounds of modern technology, big airplanes and machines and doors and chains and locks and so many things. So this is our freedom. This is what we want to look forward to. This is our goal. So thank you very much, and I'd like to open it up now for realizations and questions. Hope we didn't lose anybody.
Thank you, Gaudacandra Prabhu. That was a very nice class. Nice presentation, beautiful graphics. Great, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry to go over time, but I don't know if you have much time for questions.
I was going to ask a question, Gauda. I had it saved for the whole class, and like in the last second you answered it. You were talking about, you had mentioned earlier in the class, in several different ways you were making the point that how we're in this dungeon, and, well, make the best of it while we're here, do what we've got to do, but ultimately we should never lose focus on the ultimate goal. And then you went on, and I was going to ask you, Gauda, what's the ultimate goal? And then right here at the last moment, you talked about that, with the beautiful picture of Krishna in the spiritual world. You know, just a minor comment. I say this often in classes, but there's usually, at least for me, there's like one point that may not have been the most important, and most important point that the speaker was meaning to emphasize during the class, but it just for some reason jumped at me at that time, and that is when you went over the story of the boatman. Now, I've heard that story many times. I think it's been a long time since I've heard it for some reason, because as soon as you showed the picture of the boatsman, I was thinking, well, what is that story? I know that story, but I couldn't remember it. And when you told it, actually had Prabhupada tell it, it just really jumped at me more deeper than it ever had before. It's just something really profound about that story in your presentation. It just went deeper into my heart than ever. That, you know, no matter what we've learned, no matter what we've gained, no matter what we've accomplished, if we don't take shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna, if we don't know how to swim, if we haven't perfected our lives, we've wasted our life. And I know I'll be telling that story the next time I give a Sunday feast talk. Anyway, it just really went deeper than ever. That was really sweet. Lovely class, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Appreciate your comments.
Haribo.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah, Sadhaputta told me that every year there's a seminar where for unemployed PhDs on how to get work.
Oh.
And he pointed out that PhD means that you get a PhD by creating a new field, and you're supposed to teach it. But they write theses, and they're useless. Nobody's going to pay. What you don't pay for, you don't value.
Yeah.
So they're writing things of no value. Prabhupada told me, Jadi Jyotish Tik Kanorastate Bhik. If there's a street in Calcutta where there's palmists and astrologers, and for 2 rupees they read your palm. Well, if they knew the future, why are they sitting on the street begging? Why don't they look up the next lottery ticket number and so on? So that's an old Bengali phrase.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. You mentioned Sadhaputta. Yeah, you mentioned Sadhaputta. There was a nice story about him in PhD. I heard, he joined when he was a brahmachari in New Vrindavan. And he was studying to go to school there. He wanted to get his PhD. But he was humble, and this is what's required. Many PhDs, in the beginning of our movement, they kind of learn Sanskrit, and then they think they know more than their spiritual master. But here, they said, okay, you can engage. So they engaged him, and they said, they took this instrument with 2 pieces of wood, and at the end it had 2 sharp blades. And they said, okay, what you do is you jump on it, and you get it as far down in the ground as you can. And then you pull it apart, and you lift it up, and you dig holes. So it's like a farm, so they would make fences. So he gave him this post-hole digger, PhD, post-hole digger. So first, you become humble, and then, but then he went on to school and got his PhD. It's very nice.
So who will dig the holes then?
Yeah. That's what we have. That's why we have the Varnashram system. That's what we have.
He was setting one who teaches anything. See, Dronacharya was a Brahmin, but he taught the martial arts to the Pandavas and the Kauravas. But he's a Brahmin. Anyone who teaches, the further of that phrase is those who can do, those who can do, those who can't teach, and those who can't teach Jim.
I've heard many twists on that. And they say those who can't teach, they consult. Those those who can't consult, they work for the government.
Very better.
But we shouldn't have a government that's like that. We should have someone that they know and they do.
Well, that's why a lot of great men don't want to be the president. So we've had puppet presidents for, that's another subject, but some of the great men, after even the assassination of Lincoln, said, well, and even after his successor Johnson, said, well, we're not going to take a position where we can have to have a board that can kick us out. Senators and representatives can vote to impeach us. So we'll do our industry and we'll elect some. There's a story from the Panchatantra, the story of the camel.
Oh, yeah. Chewing his own blood or his own tongue?
So all the animals went to the tiger. Hello?
Yes.
Tell the story.
All the animals went to the tiger and said, please don't raid us here. You're going to scare all the animals away anyway. You'll have nothing. Just pick one and we'll send every week. He says, okay, no more attacks, but I want to eat the camel. So they go back and have a conference, and one by one the monkey gets up, takes the microphone and says, I will dedicate myself to the tiger for the sake of you. And they all go, no, we love you, you're funny. And then the peacock comes and says, I will surrender myself to the tiger this week. No, you're beautiful. You have lovely feathers. And all the animals. And then somebody nudges the camel. And they, why don't you speak something? Yes, I will dedicate myself to the tiger. And they all go, yay! Go! You're ugly. I think that's how they choose our presidents.
That's good.
Guy.
Bruce, we are really over here, about 20 minutes over. So if you don't mind, maybe we should quit now.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, I quit.
Wonderful class.
Thank you.
Haribol.
Class.
Very good with all the visuals.
By the way, Prabhu, if you didn't see our newsletter tomorrow, Pachutananda Prabhu is giving class.
Yay!
In this picture of the ship, what is that hand holding a cane? What is that in the lower corner there?
It's a whip, isn't it? Or no, on the lower right?
That's the
Maya beating somebody.
Yeah, what is that hand with the, looks like it's
holding a dead body.
Oh, really?
Abortion. There's more to the picture, but it's cut off. Yeah.
Oh.
It shows the whole ocean. There's like much more to the scene, but I just focused on the thing.
Okay. Haribol.
Hare Krishna.
Tender Prabhu, nice class.
Thank you, Gaudaji. Very nice.
Jai Prabhu, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
See you tomorrow.
Hare Krishna.